That's
I'll
nice.
do my hair out. I'll do mine. Mine's really bad.
Let's see. Oh, geez.
We've got the same hair, so we should both do it.
I know. You want me to?
Oh. I'm thinking about shaving it all off.
Fully, including the moustache.
No. I was really liking it recently. I think it's so I did some work on it, and
It does look a little bit more like square. Yeah.
I
That's
like
good.
it. It's growing on me by the day. Literally, actually, that's not actually a joke. I wouldn't make that joke, but yeah. How's your Easter?
Yeah, so far so good. We did a lot of things. We
Yeah.
went to the balcony a few times, came
Ooh,
back into the house, back out again.
it's very nice. I went on a run today. It was a lovely time. A lot of people out, which
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a everyone's been a bit cheeky. I think because the sun's out, but I don't know. I made sure I stayed away from people. I kept everyone, and I'm very healthy because of that.
Good for you. Yes, I did realize we've been to the park once a day, like for the daily walk, and as soon as the weather has been improving, much more people are out and like sunbathing and kind of being groups, which I think is not really respectful for the others that are actually out doing things as they're being asked. So it's been quite interesting. So we made the choice that we always go in early morning because there's less people. And we have our little daily routine, which is we always take our shoes off and walk on the grass barefoot, which I find is
Iris can't steal that from you. That might.
It's actually quite nice. I suppose I prefer it in the grass than in the like in the paths, but it's very nice. It gives a sensation because in a way we're so disconnected from earth that actually, and like if you have earth on your feet, you're kind of dirty and things like that. So that's actually quite nice to be dealing with that. And even though we're always very conscious of like, oh, there's maybe a dog pooing somewhere.
Yeah, I have a little bit of patch of grass in my garden that I've been, just chilling in and stuff. And yeah, I'm very conscious of. I think it's bird poo. There's a fox that I feed outside my window, and I think it like poos around there as well.
Okay. Well, you wash it and that's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I've enjoyed being back and spending time outside because my parents have a big garden. So I think we're very blessed for that. Like my mum's out there now, and we've been spending a lot of time there. And I said to everyone, like, at least like you were saying, you go to your balcony and you come back. Like I think a lot of people, and some people don't even have balconies. People in flats.
Yeah,
it's not good at all. But you said you've gone out a bit. You're someone that went out a bit more because obviously you work for a small business.
Yes,
as we know. And I mean, you work for a chocolate company. What are we calling it? Chocolate factory.
Yeah, I like the idea of chocolate factory. Yes,
It's funner. Yeah, and I did one day's work helping you guys out, and it made me realize that one day. It made me realize like how chaotic it was, and it just made me think of all the other small businesses that like can't, like obviously huge places like all the big shops that close, say like Nike or them, they can close and just everyone have some time off, whereas for the little guys it actually got worse.
Yes, it's very interesting because I think we went through a very I think the whole process. So I'm in charge of health and safety, which made me to be always like very wary of what was going on and which were the decisions we're making in relationship of like making sure the first our staff was safe. Secondly, then we could actually make the public feel safe as well to come to us. But I think for me, there is something that is very particular about this time, was also to be dealing with a lot of people's anxiety and worries around like what I should be doing and how do I do this. And also because things progressed in such a like fast pace that sometimes the decision I was making in the mornings about how they will be dealing or how like things needed to be arranged in the shops or in production, by 1 o'clock we needed to kind of review that, and by 5 o'clock, when the government had already give a statement, it was again a change. So things were going very quickly, and then you also have quite a lot of requests from staff that were already very worried and like completely like, I don't want to be in touch with people. I really want to self-isolate. It's how we dealt with that in a very fast pace. And at the same time, when the lockdown was, we were told there was the lockdown, we also were also told by the building, we shared the building with different, with others, other businesses, and they told us they were shutting the business down, the building down. And that for us was a big worry, because as a small business is meaning that we'll not have any income coming through. So it was like how we deal with that. And then we end up removing everything from the building very quickly. By the end of the day, we were told that actually, because we were a food company, we could stay in the building and use the building.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I did a little bit of calculation. I think we remove around 700 kilos of between the chocolates, finished products, and the packaging from the building. And by 6:30, we receive an email saying, it's fine, you can actually reuse the premises. Um, which now I'm laughing. I must tell you that when that happened, it wasn't the case. And also what made me really think at that point was basically when we knew that the building was shutting down, was bringing everybody around to help out, because they also closed the lift very early in the morning.
Yeah, because you guys were on the top floor of the
Yeah.
building. Yeah.
So we're basically going up and down on 4 floors, carrying things, and also dispatching them to our distribution center or to our shops. So it was very, very crazy, and which made me think straight away. One, firstly, if we're going lockdown and we're asking people to stay at home and actually to maintain distance, we're breaking straight away all the rules. Secondly, we are going up and down 4 floors, and the way people bend, and then they can hurt their backs. Thankfully, no one got injured. A lot of people got really tired and sore muscles. But it's all those things that you kind of need to be very, to pay attention to. And even though you are in the action, is like how you then keep trace of it, like contacting people, like asking them if they're all right, if there's anything else you can do. And even though they're furloughed, it doesn't remove the fact that we need to get in touch to actually check on people, because I think one of the main things for me in this is how people can isolate themselves socially, and will have a big impact on their mental health. And I think it's quite important, firstly, as a human being, and secondly, when you are in charge of a group of people, to actually, even though it's a time that they are basically, they're part of the business, but they are not really, even if it's a time for them to rest, I think it doesn't remove the fact to get in touch times to time, just to check in on the list, to let them know that there is someone out there in case they are struggling. So it's quite a lot of little things here and there that some people don't really particularly notice, but you actually need to be doing very constantly. So
even that one day that I worked with you, like I just was like with the hand sanitizer, washing my hands loads, and then when we had to drive into central London, it was absolutely dead. And then all these things, it was like I don't get like that, like flustered or stressed that easy, but I could feel a sense of like anxiety just because of the whole like circumstance and the like all the things we were doing. There were little things, but they were all adding up. And then when we all came together to do whatever we had to do, then we all had to stay away from each other. And then, like you said, it was stressful anyway because the job was stressful.
Yeah. And I think is you said something which is quite right. Is about, even though I have really have the sense, like for instance, the rhythm of like my work has changed quite a lot, in the sense of like I go in at 9 o'clock in the morning now, and usually like by 6 o'clock I'm finished, which is already quite a long day. But usually I tend to kind of be earlier than that and stay later than that. And in some levels, like there is, for me, I feel less pressure in a few things. I feel there is like not so much stress. At the same time, there is a common stress around, in the sense of like, okay, I'm actually getting out to go to work. And even though we still consider food essential, we are a chocolate business. And in a personal
Essential.
perspective, in a personal perspective, I will say that chocolate, it is essential. Chocolate is actually, it's a good way to actually release good endorphins into the body, because of the content of theobromine. So I do think it's a good thing that people are allowed to eat it and have the access to it, but also makes me actually think up to which point things are necessary or not, which is a big question. At the same time, I'm also very conscious that if we don't make this effort, is we then don't really know if we're going to have a business to come back to. So I think the line is very fine, and is how you kind of navigate into that, which for me is being quite like almost everyday question, to be fair. And also, like, even though the team is very small, the team we have in, we give them bikes so they can come into work without using public transport.
A bike, did I?
Which you can say is little things that I started buying this. We had in our building, there is a coffee shop downstairs. They have short, but they're now starting delivering a like breakfast bundles, that they call it. So I'm starting to get that once a week, so like people can have in and have these little details that I think a colleague the other day said to me, "Oh, that doesn't make any difference," but I do think it does, because by the end of the day, it's like you arrive, you have, okay, oh, actually, I can have a slice of bread.
I'm trying to think who would have said that. I could probably guess a few people.
Yes.
I mean, like what people don't realize as well about obviously we know this from working with it, but like chocolate is like really seasonal in terms of like when it's so like say this all happened and lockdown happened in like say a month's time, I think the business would have been okay because did all right from the Easter and then from Christmas before, but it really couldn't have come at like a worse time.
Yeah. For us was kind of essential, and also is, so we basically, we haven't been producing anything for the past 3 weeks. We basically, the main goal of keeping the structure running was actually to also to use the stock that we had. One of the big issues of not using them, that, as you said, as is seasonal, is basically, if we're not selling Easter eggs for Easter, that meant probably when we reopened, that we don't know, let's say sometime in June, or mean that the only thing we'll have for people to actually sell will be Easter eggs, which probably people will not want to buy any. So that, for me, there is one, the first of in the sense of the economy. So we'll be losing money, but secondly, for me, is also we'll be losing perishable goods, because even though chocolate lasts a long time, is not something that we could have used for the following year. So we actually will have quite a lot of wastage.
Because there's all those annoying things about dates, like we know that from like people sending back stuff with a short date, but it's actually still really long. But I find that really frustrating about the food
Yes, the
industry.
food industry can be quite tricky in that way. I do find best befores and sell by date are important, because they're there to protect people, because food poisoning can be really serious. But then also the frustration of some places will not take anything with less than 3 months old. 3 months shelf life, which means like 3 months is quite a long time. So if you send it with 2 months and a week, they send it back. And then if you actually cannot use that for something else because you probably didn't plan to have an extra, then you end up wasting.
Just thinking about that out of date honeycomb stuff that I gave to that lorry driver. That was a gift, and I did warn him. I sort of said, you know what you're getting into here. But yeah, he said, but I also think that didn't make him feel well because he said he ate it all pretty quickly. And like these honeycomb things, they're basically like what, like a fancier version of a crunchy.
Yes, they are.
And like if you eat like, I remember my first week of working with you guys, I had like maybe like four in like a day once, and I was like buzzing around, like I thought I was gonna die. I felt like I'd taken loads of drugs and I was on like a trip and I just wanted it to end. You know when you get really drunk and you're just, oh, I just want this to end. That's what I felt like.
Yeah, well, that's one of the perks of Sugar Rush. It makes you feel really happy in the beginning, and at some point you can feel your. I sometimes, when I eat too much chocolate, I can find my heart, my palpitations are faster, and I can feel this like, okay, it's a little bit too much, and I want it to end, but I know it's not going to be ending for quite a long
Well, a
time.
lot of people find it funny, like when you say you work in a chocolate factory. That's why we said at the start. Straight
Mm.
away, everyone's like, "Love that, really good." Um, and then, like, people ask, "Oh, you must eat so much." You're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then I say sometimes, "Oh, you can get a little bit sick of it sometimes. Like, you need a little bit of a break." And like, people are just like, "No, like incorrect." And I've never got like to the point where I'm like, "No." I've never been like chocolate. I hate it. But have you ever got to that point?
No, I think what I have to on time, I don't eat everything. I'm very picky with what I choose to eat. So because I think when, for instance, when people start, when newbies come in, I always have this I always say to them, look, you can eat whatever you want and the quantity that you want. Because I think the most you try to say to people, do not eat or not kind of not allowing is not really a good thing. I think it's important for them to actually try and eat the products that they are working with. But I also find that naturally then people will either stop to eat that much or either then end up going and choosing what they eat. And I think that's quite actually good because in a way you also kind of indulging people to actually train their own palates because I'm pretty sure the taste that you had when you started from the taste that you had when you left is not exactly the same. It might be me dropping here and there a few things about it, but it's also about your own body, what your own body recognizes as what it likes or not.
I'm still pretty open to like anything. No, like when we have certain stuff, people are like maybe not all for it. I will still eat anything. Like me and Tom, who work together, we pretty much eat anything. He's like really bad, but I'm still pretty open. But yeah, I get what you mean. Like even with like knowing all the different products,
Mm.
like when I eat something else, I say, "Oh, that's like this thing, blah blah blah," like, and that's got that ingredient in it, or something like that. And my friends are like, "It's just chocolate, just eat it." Okay.
Yeah, I think it doesn't remove the fact that, for instance, I will go, sometimes I go for things that usually I will not, like when I feel a little bit like I need a little bit more sugar, or sometimes there are things that are not naturally very, very indulgent. And you kind of, when you're feeling a little bit low, you really look, your body almost crave those things that will make you feel kind of very nice and kind of warm. And they're quite round. So it's still, but um, I think I'm thinking of someone that has been working there for many, many years. And this lady always says, like, I don't eat anything apart milk chocolate all
Yeah,
the time.
I know what you're talking about.
It,
Yeah,
it's quite interesting. But the other day I gave her dark chocolate saying that it was milk and she ate it and it was covered on cocoa powder, so she couldn't actually know. And I was like, so, and she's like, I love it. It's really, really good. And I was like, okay. And I didn't say it was dark chocolate because I say if I say I'm going to spoil for her. But I thought it was quite nice to actually have this. I think sometimes we also place things in our minds that are set and we think we don't like something else. And it's quite interesting how those things work. Which fascinates me about it is times we have um, so we are only doing online at the moment and home deliveries, and we have had very good sales for this Easter online, which is precedent for the company. And it's been really interesting because we like having a look of what sold straight away, and that what we have sold out of, and then how people then transition to other products. There is some similarities. Like, for instance, I think people really like nuts and chocolates together. So there was one of the first ones to go, and then the main product was sold out, and then how then they transitioned for something that had nuts but wasn't like straight away. And I think that says a lot also about how, even though people are at home, I do wonder the influence of actually spending time looking for things to buy. And I'm saying that because I've been, thankfully, we have delivery people that are very, very effective. And they've been very, very busy. And I was asking the guy, I was like, oh, how is being for you? And he was like, oh, I have never worked. That this is worse than Christmas for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was very interesting because I was like, oh, and he said to me, oh, the first week was mainly computer deliveries. I suppose everybody working from home, so business suddenly, things like that. And then he said, and asking, what about now? And he's like, it's everything.
Yeah,
Like,
people need everything now, don't they?
yeah. And I found that was quite interesting because he was also mentioning the fact that he's way more busy. So, and he has two kids at home and his wife. And he was saying, well, I don't mind working, but also sometimes I do wonder like how people are spending because so much work, and I'm the one who is out there delivering all those things. So it made me really rethink as well. Even though I'm very grateful for people to have bought so much chocolate to be able to keep the company going, is up to which point we also sometimes still being very selfish because some of us are at home and just putting orders up there, but actually there is a whole important group of people that are not just the people from the NHS that are actually doing an incredible job and putting basically themselves at risk, and being there all the time, from, I don't know, 5 in the morning on to 7 in the evening doing those deliveries. So I think it's very important to recognize that. I put a little chocolate for the postman out of my door to say thank you for the good work.
Yeah, I might give them something next time because I only ordered one thing. I ordered um, Grand Theft Auto 5 for my Xbox because, I've got some time to kill and it reminds me of being young. And I thought, I'll play that. So I'll give him something when he comes. Were you surprised that those people bought chocolate? Was that a point where you were like, oh shit, this is like, it's over?
Um, and I didn't really think, oh, it's over, but I was very surprised by the huge demand. Really, really surprised. And there's a very short but interesting article in the BBC about how chocolate was one of the biggest um, recording sales over the past 2 weeks. Like Tortons and Hotel de Chocolat had too much orders, and they shut the website for a few hours to actually be able to balance out the orders. And they're saying against sales in the supermarket, the Easter eggs in the supermarket have dropped, which I think is great because usually some of the quality is not great. So, but in my personal opinion, they
Oh,
tend to
I'm
be.
going to be going tomorrow and buying loads of cheap ones.
I
That's
know
what me and
you
my
would.
friend do. That's what me and my friend Tom, we do it every year. We go like the day after Easter and we just buy tons really cheap.
Yeah, well, I think these days you can actually find things at the supermarket that are a little bit more quality, but please do avoid things that don't have much cocoa content on it because
I won't be looking. I see you.
maybe it's a time that we can actually reflect a little bit more buying before just because they're cheap.
I don't know. We'll see. No, but then you get to get the better ones. The ones that are normally like £12 or something will be like £2. So you do probably get better ones.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's interesting because I do remember in the beginning of the the virus itself, not just the lockdown up. We went to the supermarket one day and it was so full. I had the impression it was like the day before Christmas. They usually people are like buying really big quantities. And I remember my husband and I just went like with our usual like quantity and like looking around. It's like, okay, people looking at us like, what are you doing? Where's the supermarket? You need to buy. And then now so we're still going to the shops. We're not buying online. I think it's quite hard to have delivered at home food, and we are still fit enough to actually in health to actually go out. So leave those times for people that cannot. But I found this quite interesting, the fact that even when you're going shopping, you are forced to actually take the time to go shopping, in the sense of you need to queue before, at least around here, is in all the shops. You need to queue before, and then when you're in, there is, so going back what you're saying about this kind of nervous or maybe anxious energy that is around. But I found quite interesting because you kind of don't have the choice apart to wait and actually to take the time to queue. And I've been finding that actually quite pleasant, because then I like your eyes, like what are you talking about? Actually, I think it's something that it makes me, because I have the time in the queue. So when I go into usually I have a little less, but then beforehand I'm kind of like, okay, so I'm spending my time outside. So when I'm going to go in the supermarket, I'm going to be very effective and just get what I need. And I think that's been quite good, is like getting what I need. Of course, sometimes I see something and then end up buying a few things that I don't. But I'm finding actually that a quite good.
do you buy any chocolate?
Supermarket, no.
No, you get so much. Even like when I worked there, you used to get a delivery from like everyone sends you all but you got like presents every day. You get like gifts from like everywhere.
There's samples.
Samples, yeah.
Samples, Ollie.
And it was my job to take all the deliveries. So every day, that was part of my thing, getting all your samples and presents.
So yeah.
And then you even had people that worked there were baking stuff for you. Honestly.
Well, you did get some. I share my
Yeah,
samples.
I used to make sure I stayed when you opened it.
So you could see that, yeah.
We had your brother on, didn't we?
Yes.
I talked to him on his journey towards Buddhism, which was interesting.
Mm.
And I want to know from you your journey to chocolate, because I
Okay.
think a lot of people are like love the job. You know what I mean? They're like, even I worked there. I did nothing like to do with chocolate really in terms of like the process, but people were still like, even to me, like, wow. But you actually work with the chocolate.
Yes. So my journey with chocolate is quite, well, I don't know, particularly different, but I didn't have anything to do with chocolate. And I started 6 years ago. So I did a training in psychology and social work when I was in France. Did a lot of working with people with mental health issues, with with a lot of schizophrenia, psychosis, and all of that. And then I moved to the UK. My husband got a job here, came before, and then I ended up coming here to join him. Um, and if I wanted to do the same type of work, I need to have an equivalence. I did university. I wasn't really fond of going back to it. I had just finished a training, which was like kind of master degrees level, and I didn't really want to go back. And I have a friend that has a microbrewery, and I was giving him a hand helping out. And initially, the big part of the business was to teach people how to brew, so people could brew at home. So I was helping him out with the courses and things like that. And I quite enjoy it. And one day he said to me, "Oh, I know a chocolatier that will love to like train people, and I think you would do it very well." And I was a little bit like, "Oh, okay." Didn't know anything much about chocolate, and then ended up had a conversation with her. Worked 3 months with her. It was very interesting for me. It was just doing like a stage kind of thing, 3 days a week, and then end up really kind of getting like finding interest. A thing that I think chocolate is something that everybody likes it. Well, most of people like it, and it's something that gives a lot of pleasure, but it's also something that when you start working with it, there is a whole technical part of it which is very, very interesting. And I think for me, if I compare my previous training with chocolate now, I think it's this whole thing about like in the theory you have something that works, like when you're working with people with psychosis, you have all the theory behind it and actually how the structure can work and how you can offer things. But then when you're actually working with it, you always need to pay attention to little details and kind of be tweaking, because otherwise it's not going to work. And chocolate is exactly that. Is you have your technique and you have your temperatures to work with, but sometimes if it's a little bit more, if it's hotter or if it's a bit more humid, you need to change things around. And sometimes you do exactly the same thing over and over again, and by the 30th time it actually doesn't work. So you have all these elements for me that make it quite an interesting thing. So I did quite a lot of self-taught learning, but I also did a few courses, and then that's it. I end up kind of in chocolate by this kind of fun way of, okay, let's go for it, and actually end up developing a passion for it, to be fair. Then also what I found quite interesting is when I end up learning a little bit how chocolate is made and where it comes from exactly, like what is the fruit and how you kind of how the beans comes along to actually make the base chocolate itself and how you rework with that. So that's a little bit how my path took me to chocolate.
Yeah, I think, and what interested me as well, because I think you sort of told me bits of that story before, and also Simon that works with at Rococo, I was talking to him about it, and I expected with all you people that it was something that you'd all decided when you were younger and you've worked to this point. But he was also like, he sort of gave a similar thing. He was like, sort of like did it a bit and then did this, then did that, and it just happened. And then I also thought it was interesting after talking to your brother, who made such a change from his old job and stuff towards where he is now. I was thinking both of you have a clear, just like, I don't know, such a big change in your lives. And me and you talked about this, and I think a lot of people are scared. I mean, there'll be people that are my age, like I'm 24. I'm sure I have friends that already think that this is it in life. You know what I mean? What they're doing now. They're like, no, I'm 24 now. Like, I can't change now. Whereas both you and your brother have done these massive changes.
Mm.
You're just doing it, and I like that, because I imagine my life being, having different stages and wanting to try different things.
Mm. Yeah, I think if I think of my path in life in different things, I suppose we all grew up in different ways. We have different history. We live in different environments. So um, I suppose this people deal with change in a very different way. It's not because you grew up in the same family that means that you're necessarily gonna react to it in the same way. And um, for me, changes, they always came a little bit without me almost realizing that they were there. Um, but also when I realized they were there, it was like, okay, I'm already on it, so let's go for it. Um, I think what I realized for myself is changes that I make very with a very conscious way. They tend to usually be things that take way more time. Um, and I don't know, I'm thinking of, for instance, installing a routine where I know that I'm doing something for myself that is good for my my mental health, or even just my kind of level of stress during the day, is like taking an extra time in the morning to just basically maybe not do much. For instance, I'd really like to sit and have like a cup of tea and not be doing anything, just kind of there. And sometimes to have
teas for you.
yes, the morning teas. And for me is a way of like kind of starting the day, so I'm kind of preparing myself for it. And one of the things you probably never noticed, or you might have and you never told me, so I have on my watch this breathing app that tells, like, it sometimes is kind of buzzes on my wrist, and it's like, okay, I need to actually breathe a little bit. And actually that's quite nice, because it's something that you kind of, and to make the conscious change of actually paying attention to that it's time to actually stop. And even if I'm doing something, to actually stop for a minute and to do it.
So it was an app that was making me make you teas.
Yeah. Maybe. No, I think I do use it a little bit more than you made me tea. But I think it's those changes, they take way more work and sometimes way more courage, because I was actually having that discussion the other day at work. We are in the last rush of Easter packing, and we're talking about cigarettes break, and the thing that it's actually social acceptable to go for a cigarette break. And in whatever kind of job you do, usually if you say, oh, I just need to pop out for a cigarette, it's fine. Like, no one will say anything about it. It's like, okay, people just go for the cigarettes and come back. But if you say, I'm just going to pop out for a minute of breathing, for a minute of meditation, or for just not to do anything and look at the wall, people look at you like, why are you taking a break? What are you doing? And we are relating to the fact that we're always supposed to be doing something all the time.
Yeah.
And for me, that little minute thing, it takes me still quite a lot of courage sometimes within myself to actually just stop whatever I'm doing, even if it's responding to an email, and just actually be there and for a minute just kind of be concentrating on me. And I think because it's a very conscious choice, it takes me way more practice than actually to go to the whole change of careers and everything. It doesn't remove the fact that it was quite hard during the process. I had a lot of doubts, am I doing the right choice, etc. Or sometimes it popped to my mind, well, maybe I wasn't never really good at what I did before, that's why I'm kind of, life is taking me for something else, until actually, and when you're doing the something else, am I good enough to actually do this? But in a way, for me, it always kind of came kind of naturally. So I think change is quite a funny thing, isn't it? Because basically now we are also asking quite a lot of people to change the way they live for a period of time, but then we don't actually know what is going to be the result after.
Yeah, in the last one, I talked to a guy yesterday, and I said, "What if everyone just, you're at home, so you have all your home comforts. Your lifestyles change because you don't have to go to work,
Yes.
but you can lie in bed all day."
Yeah.
I think the results will be different. It changes you like day to day, but like your values and your work ethic or your mental health or well-being, I think you still need to make that conscious choice, because being at home is the ultimate, stay with yourself.
Yeah. And I suppose it's also, I think, of a question of practicing and structuring yourself, isn't it? Because it's quite easy when you're at home to kind of a little bit this kind of holiday mode, which is fine, but also there is the fact that this is not really holidays in a way. I think it is, at least for me, the way I see it, I think is a time that people is there for rest and for people to recharge. And I think that's kind of maybe something quite maybe subtle, but there is a difference between that and holidays. Holidays still a time to rest, but it's a time that you chose or even, well, I suppose when you're at school and or when you're at uni, you don't really necessarily choose that time, but you kind of program yourself to be on holiday at a certain time. And this was basically from one day to another. It was like, well, you don't have the choice. So I think that's quite interesting. Um, and I think for me, a question that I've been kind of, I know we're still kind of, for me, I think we're still probably in the middle of it. So I don't think there is a possibility of the lockdown finishing next week. But I've been asking myself quite a lot how we're going to deal, even in terms of work, because so far the measures we took has been very good. No one has been sick. So that means that what we have put in place is actually working. But I've also been thinking when people come back, how people are going to come back, how people are going to be dealing with to be close to each other, have someone that is working at the moment that is washing his hands so much that is bleeding, and work in the kitchen. Usually you wash your hands all the time anyway, but then you kind of learn how to kind of to balance out the washing up, and then people are way more conscious of putting creams and things like that. I had a conversation with this person and say, could you make sure, one, you put more cream, and two, we need to wash our hands, but then is up to where is actually the necessity, up to where is the anxiety that you actually need to wash it, because you either get sick or either you can give sickness to someone. So I think it's going to be quite interesting, at least in the food environment, to see how people are going to come back and at the factory, and kind of how they're going to be dealing with each other.
Do you think, like, with you guys, do you think you were not lucky, but you seem to have got through this, through the online stuff, and that's all gone quite well? Do you think there'll be a lot of food production companies that just don't make it through this period?
I've been talking a little bit with a few colleagues in the area, and not everybody had that much success at these times. And I do have a few colleagues in the industry that are very, very concerned. Especially because I found this quite interesting. Well, the government is putting in place quite a lot of help, and the possibility of basically not paying your rent for a few months, and then, but they all saying to me, well, the issue with that is you're still going to need to pay it, and we don't know how quickly we're going to be able to make money enough to pay for everything, and also to pay for things that we couldn't pay 3 months ago. um, and is and actually, when you think, even if when you think of a business, so that means if you think of a restaurant, it's not just the fees that, let's say the VAT, the rent, the staff itself, but then you have all the suppliers that you probably are in terms with them, and then probably your terms of payment are coming through time, and then you need to pay them, but then you don't have. So that means you cannot pay them. So that means they don't have any income coming to them, and that actually generates a whole. It's very complex, and I do think some of my colleagues will be actually not having a job to go back to. Um, I was about actually to have someone new in the kitchen, in the team, and she was supposed to arrive just a week ago. And I gave her a call, explaining that unfortunately I could not guarantee to have her in. And I was very, very happy with the fact that she managed, because I said to her, look, if you have any possibility of talking to your boss at the moment and tell him if you can stay, because you cannot have the job anymore. And she actually, and thankfully, she actually was able to keep her job, which actually relieved me quite a lot of even though I knew there was nothing that I could do about it, but it's this social kind of oh, wow, okay, I could have actually got her to resign to come to us and actually not be able to actually get her. So And she shared with me, because we had a long conversation and she was fine about it, but 6 people on the team that she was at were told to go home. So it is a big impact.
Do you think all the jobs will bounce back? Like, do you think it'll be a quick recovery or it will be slow?
I don't know. If I had a magic ball, it would be great. I don't know.
I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, honestly, like you know, I'd planned to go to Canada and explore some things there, and yeah, it's just, you mentioned it. It's not going to be one day that like you can go back. You know, it's not going to be like one day that everyone's like, "Yep, back to work."
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm going to do. And then even thinking about going back at all, say this goes on for months, my life might have changed so much. I got invited on this like fun little speed dating thing, and I didn't find love. But what if I did? Or what if, you know, all these things happen? What if I get like, I've been doing little bits of work here and there for other companies and for myself, and what if my thing did really well? I'd be like, well, I'm not going to go to Canada because the UK actually likes me now. So yeah, it's so hard to say. I'm trying to think of things that I can do right now, and that's been these conversations and trying to get in some sort of shape. That I like playing sports and stuff. I can't play with anyone, but just like going out on runs and stuff, and they're the only things you can do, and just go from day to day. I can't. Luckily, I saved a bit of money because I was supposed to be spending it over there. So, but you know, it's hard to say with anything, isn't it? Because we're only right at the start.
Yeah. And I think you said something quite good, is like concentrating on the now and then. I think as human beings are very good at thinking of tomorrow and not thinking of what's going on the day itself. And I think presence is something that is quite important. Do you find the days are longer, shorter, or?
Probably shorter because I wake up about 4 hours later than I used to. I keep pretty busy, so like I make like I talk to people, then I edit the videos, then we got all the other stuff we're doing, like we're premiering. So basically, there was a film that was supposed to be premiered soon, and we helped them like a year ago when they were first shooting stuff and all that, and they're premiering it on our website. So we've got like little projects like that where we're doing things like that, and then like I said, trying to do more things like running and stuff because I was like so lazy before this, but now you've got those more hours. So now they feel, I don't know, I'm wasting a lot of time though. I do. I'm a procrastinator a lot of the time. So it's interesting. You said you worked at a brewery. I was just thinking, that's what I wanted to do. Like I'd left working in like a graduate job, and like I wanted to do something that was interesting me. So like I was thinking like what crafts interest me and what's like accessible now for someone that, and I thought brewery first, and then I couldn't find anything, and then I know I didn't, like I said, I didn't make the chocolate, but I thought I just want to see what's going on here.
Well, it was a good choice, at least for us, that you chose to come, because it was always a pleasure to have you.
I think I like a craft in life. You know, that's what I'm craving.
Yeah.
I've said it before. Like, I don't want to like just put numbers in a computer. I want to make. I want to build or do whatever. So see what there is afterwards.
Well, I think only time will tell. And then, as you said, like something might happen tomorrow, and after tomorrow, that will change you twice again. So
yeah, probably. But I'm gonna go eat dinner now.
That's good. I have the sun just kind of start blinding me.
I'm gonna save you from that. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for talking to me now.
My pleasure. It was quite nice. And actually, I was paying attention to your moustache, and actually suits you really well. So I think you should keep it.
Yes, I think I should as well. Thank you. Finally, how long has that been going on for?
I don't know. Maybe
November. Since November. That's when I first did it.
See, it took me a while, but I did change my mind.
I think it's because I sorted it out. Like when I was working with you,
It
my
was
hair
great.
was everywhere. Oh, ugh.
Well, with the hair, I must not say anything because we both have exactly the same craziness of hair. But yeah, the mustache is approved now.
All right. I'm gonna save that clip. I'm gonna have it.
You're going to put me to repetition.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to everyone that's mean to my moustache.
Good.
All right.
All right. Bye, Ollie. Nice to
Yeah.
talk to you.